Hello and welcome back to Devlog. In this series, we are developing payroll software from scratch. And in this episode, I'm locked in. We're wrapping up the business onboarding flow with 2 final steps and some validation across the app. But before we begin, I must say Happy New Year's. I know I'm quite late, almost a month honestly, but I've been planning. I realized that I don't take New Year's resolutions seriously, so this year I'm making a single lifestyle change instead. This year, I'm locked in. In the last episode, we started working on the business onboarding flow to gather necessary information about the business before allowing them to run payroll. Now we can move on to the next step, selecting the business's pay frequency. I have made an executive decision. We are going to enforce a single pay frequency across the entire organization. We actually implemented departments and employees with individual pay groups, but I don't think that's necessary, at least not yet. We start off how we always do, updating the database schema. In this case, all we need to do is add a pay frequency attribute to the organization model. Now that we're adding more steps to the onboarding, we need a way to determine what step the user is on. I'm using the page search params to do this, which are values provided directly through the URL using this question mark syntax. We're comparing the search param step value against what information the user has already provided. This prevents the user from skipping steps and provides a fallback in case of a bad search param. I don't know if this is like a professional top-shelf GigaChat solution, but it works for now. Foreshadowing. Now based on this step value, we can display the appropriate form. In the last episode, we developed the business details form as step number 1, and now we'll have the business pay frequency form as step number 2. Since when does OBS have... Beautiful. The form is pretty straightforward. We have 4 pay frequency options, each with a value, title, and description. We map over these options and render radio inputs for the single form field pay frequency. Very exciting stuff. The server action used to update the pay frequency is redonkulously simple. I've added some basic error handling, but it's essentially just a Prisma update on the organization model. And here's the final design. This is dark mode, but we of course have a light mode as well. I have included a simple info banner telling the user that once they approve the first payroll, their pay frequency is locked in. Just like me. This turned out pretty clean. I'm proud of this. I think we're ready for a Series A funding round. Let's move on to the next step, the signatory. You might be asking yourself, Farzan, what on God's green earth is a signatory? Well, a company signatory is the person who has signing authority on behalf of the company, essentially the person authorized to run payroll. Step number 3 calls for a new component, the business signatory form. To standardize identification collection, that's a bar, I have decided to simply reuse the employee creation form we put together a few episodes back. Whole bunch of code, but most of this is just copy paste. However, I have removed the department and salary fields because I don't want to overwhelm the user by forcing a bunch of decisions so early on. The employee schema requires some minor changes as well. The department relationship is now optional, and we need an additional Boolean column to record if the employee is a signatory or not. Just like the form, we can reuse the create employee server action we already have. We just need to modify it to work with optional department, signatory, and salary values. And here's the final design. The layout is inspired from the first step, breaking up the form into 3 sections. I also added an info banner similar to the one from step number 2, alerting the user of a legal caveat that I only discovered myself from Google. Once we fill out the form, we can click the next step button, which takes us to an empty final step. Before we move on, let's stop for a second and smell the roses. Let's take a moment to appreciate this steps legend. Unbelievable UI design. Everything I learned from McMaster ComSci 4 HC3 human computer interfaces. Shout out Geneva Smith for the 4.0. Now I want one final step to guide the user on what they should do now that they have finished onboarding. We should include a simple message congratulating them along with a few options for what they can set up next, such as adding their employees, their departments, or finishing up their signatories' employee details. With that final step, the user is done onboarding and can explore the platform. Before we add some basic middleware to enforce this onboarding process, let's commit our changes so far. I usually commit often, but for some reason I left way too much work uncommitted today. Hold on, wait a minute.
Hold up, wait a minute.
Throw it back, reverse it for a second. I realized that I do not like this. It's messy, overcomplicated, and not easy to maintain. To improve this, I added a simple onboarding step column to the organization model. Now I'm not sure if this is better in the long run, but look how well it cleans everything up. We just have to ensure that we update the column after every step, but that is extremely easy to do. Just trust me. With this change, we no longer need the search param and the app displays the onboarding step only when needed. Now that the onboarding step is a simple variable rather than various intricate calculations, we can easily add middleware that prevents the user from doing anything prior to completing their onboarding. However, I'm not really sure how Nextjs middleware works with NextAuth and translations, and I'm getting kinda itchy to wrap this ticket up, so we'll just stick a ghetto redirect directly in the sidebar component and slap it with a to-do, hoping we'll eventually improve it. Now, if we manually navigate to pages like departments or employees, we're sent right back to the onboarding process. We can also make the sidebar reflect this onboarding restriction by disabling all the non-public pages. Beautiful. Let's see how it looks in light mode. Still beautiful. Now if we complete the onboarding, we should see that the sidebar nav is no longer disabled and we can navigate to other pages. Beautifully done. Now that the entire business uses a single standard pay frequency, we can get rid of all the pay frequency fields throughout the app. Firstly, departments no longer determine pay frequency, so we can get rid of this field and the corresponding table column. We can also get rid of the pay frequency column on the employees table since they will all be the same. Alright, one final commit and push. And there we have it. Thank you so much for watching this episode of Devlog. We have put together an intuitive and well-organized business onboarding flow. Now that we have all the information we need, we can start working on running payroll. Low-key, a very intimidating task. Good thing I'm locked in. I hope you enjoyed this episode and maybe learned something along the way. Please make sure to subscribe to follow along and see where this project goes. Otherwise, I will see you in the next one.